Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Bolt Report. I am Michael Wax, joined as always by my co-host Jake Ricker. Jake, how we doing today?
Michael, I'm doing fantastic. Tomorrow starts the official first preseason game. I'm so excited. Hockey's officially back. I cannot wait.
You may have dated this video just a little bit. I don't know when it's going to come out, but yes, tomorrow is our first preseason game, and we've actually got a bit of a surprise here. A surprise video that we started on Twitter. We asked you, the fans, give us your biggest hot take for this upcoming season. We want you to be as creative, wacky, thought provoking as possible. And we said that the best ones that you guys decided or thought of would be in this video. Jake, you actually don't know any of these, so this is going to be perfect.
I do not. I haven't been checking the Twitter account, Michael. You've been running that, so I could not know anything going into this. So I'm super excited to see what everybody came up with. We'll have our own hot takes that we'll throw on in there for the upcoming season. Should be a lot of fun and a good way to pass the time as we get closer and closer to the actual start of the regular season here for the Lightning.
Exactly. And we're going to do our hot takes at the end of the video, but let's get it started. Apologies if I mispronounce any of the names or any of the Twitter handles that I do see when going through these. But guys, thank you so much for adding every single one of these replies. Let's get right into it. First of all, at Brendan McCune 95, Nico Huhtinen or Maxim Groshev will make the team out of camp and put up 10 to 15 goals. Jake?
Yeah, if you told me that a couple of weeks ago, I probably would have said, "Yep, that's definitely a big hot take with the way the Lightning roster looks like." But at media day this year, we found out about a couple of injuries the Lightning are dealing with. One, like Mikey Eyssimont, who is going to be out until at least mid-October. So there's definitely more room on this roster for someone to make it out of camp. I think there was still a chance even with Eyssimont in the lineup, but definitely a little more difficult. I will say, as much as I like both of those players and Groshev is my number one guy. I'm really excited to see him when he finally cracks the NHL roster. Connor Geekie is probably the most well-rounded player in the one that I think has the best chance of making it. Now, Geekie's brand new to the organization. You probably really want to see him down with the crunch for a little bit so he can get used to being with the Lightning and being in this whole new system, this new environment. But if I had to guess, he's the one that probably has the best shot. But again, with the injuries the Lightning are dealing with here early, and there's a couple other guys that are a little iffy on whether they can make it for opening night, like Luke Glendening. He's the other one that is iffy here. But it's not a crazy take. It really isn't, especially with the way some of these players have been playing in the prospect showcase, the rookie showcase, and we'll see how they do here in a training camp. But I like it.
I do as well. And I did have a hot take last year where I said that Walter Merila would finish in the top 8 in goals for the Lightning. He did make the team out of camp. He only scored 1 goal. So you never know with these types of rookies, but I do love this hot take. And I hope that whether it's Groshev, Huhtinen, or anybody else on the crunch, they can make that impact on the main roster. The Lightning desperately need more scoring. Going now to at Rem Stam. Sorelli will once again clean the toilet in the defensive zone and fly behind Selkie conversations like a piece of plywood. I believe this is saying that once again, Sorelli will be one of the best defensive centers in the NHL, but he won't get the Selkie nomination like he's looking for. Jake, we've seen Sorelli dominate in the Selkie conversation, maybe not in the voting, but definitely in the Tampa Bay area when it comes to defense. He's always flying under the radar. Is this going to be another one of those seasons?
I love that analogy, by the way. It's a fun one, very creative. 10 points for that. Yeah, listen, Sorelli has always been a very good defensive forward. I think in recent years, he's kind of, not been as front and center when it comes to that conversation and being a two-way forward. Listen, the Lightning, obviously, as we all know, their 5-on-5 play was the number one issue for them last season. They're going to need players to step up and really be good 5-on-5, especially on defense. And Sorelli's the type of guy that can really do that. So if he can come out and have a big season, I think it's going to help the Lightning tremendously. Now, whether he's in the conversation for the Selkie, I mean, as this tweet kind of said, it kind of feels like it is every single year. He's always kind of playing well, but he's never been really able to get in that conversation just because of how much talent the Lightning have. Now, maybe if the team as a whole 5-on-5 stats are better, that's going to help Cirelli in first conversation. But there's other players out there that who also make a big impact on their teams and are on teams that will likely be doing better in the overall standings of the entire NHL. So, I mean, I believe this. I don't know if I'd call this necessarily a hot take. I can very easily see this happening. It wouldn't surprise me a ton. I hope Strelly can get back to where he was a couple of years ago and really be in the front of that conversation because that would be fantastic for the Lightning and something that would really help him out this year.
Yeah, it's very interesting you say that. One man's hot take is another man's cold take, it seems sometimes. So, for all of these, maybe it's a hot take them, it's not a hot take to a couple other people. We got some hot takes later where they say maybe it's not really a hot take. So we'll get to those later. But the next one we got is from our man, Matt Gannon, who you also know from RBLR at Matt underscore Shook without the U. You'll know who he is. He's the Gan Man, as he says on Twitter. Point, Kucherov, and Gensel will all crack 100 points.
This is a classic Matt Gannon take. I love it. Matt Gannon's fantastic. Shout out to RBR Lightning over there. Those guys do a fantastic. I'm a little biased because I'm on the shows too, but it's a fun time. So if you haven't subscribed to them, definitely go check them out for sure. But yeah, I love this. This is a hot take, no question. Listen, all three of those guys definitely have the capability of putting up 100 points. If they're all on the same line, probably makes it might make it a little easier if they're all on the same line. That's tough to do, to have three players cracking 100 points. But again, if anybody's got the ability to do it, it's these three players. We've seen Nikita Kucherov and what he did last year. Unbelievable season, breaking records, one of the best seasons we've seen in the NHL in decades, for a very, very long time. So no question, he can do that, especially the way he passes the puck. Gensel probably he's not replacing Stamkos, but he's going to kind of take over that general spot that Stamkos left. And there's no reason to think that he will get a ton of feed from Kucherov, and he will be able to really benefit from that. And so I think both those guys can easily hit 100 points. Points a little more difficult because he plays that center role. I don't know what line he's going to be on. He technically took a little bit of a step backward last year just because he had such a good year the year before that, if you can really even say that. So points probably the hardest one to hit 100 points. He could definitely do it, especially if he ramps up his goal production once again like he did 2 years ago. But yeah, I love this. This is a fun one. It would be really, really cool to see the Lightning get 3 100-point players. It's not something you see very often, but that's a good take.
It's an interesting take for sure. I don't know the last time that we've seen three players on a team at 100 points.
It's super rare.
We usually see a duo. We don't really see a trio. And our next one is going to be from at Rays and Bolts on Twitter. They have three, but technically we've already talked about one, so we're just going to go with two of them. The first one is that Connor Geeky solidifies himself, as the second line center by the end of the season.
Yeah, again, I don't think that's actually a crazy hot take. Like I could definitely see that. The only thing that I think hurts that is if they want to see Geeky down in the AHL, they want to take time and develop him. Now, of course, Lightning, if they run into injuries, especially here again out of training camp, and if he makes the opening night roster, I could easily see him moving up. I guess the hardest part would be the fact that going up to a second line center. I could definitely see him making the roster and being low on third or fourth line. Second line roster could be tough. But because we know Cooper loves to jumble up those lines. That would be great for the Lightning. They need a top six guy. If he could become that, that's fantastic. Would make some of their moves look even better as well. So I hope that does happen. Getting to second line might be tough, but he's certainly got the chance to do it.
I think the only problem that I have with this take, and it's not necessarily a problem, it's just like overall, I don't see him ever being a second line center because we have Anthony Cirelli. Like that's essentially how I think about this take is, I don't think he's ever going to supplant Cirelli, at least not this year. But if he becomes a second line winger, I think that would be fantastic for the Lightning, and it would definitely help them bolster what was ultimately a very disappointing non-first line of scoring uh, from last year. But we're going to go back to Rays and Bolts hot takes right here. The third one they had, the second one was about their three 100-point scores. Very interesting that two people had the same take about three 100-point scores. But the third take they had was that the Lightning are going to make a playoff run going to the Eastern Conference Final.
Oh, man, I would love that. That would be fantastic. Listen, you look on paper, the Lightning are definitely not as good as they once were on paper. Again, on paper doesn't mean everything. We got to see how they are on the ice. One common theme at Media Day was that this is a very different looking team. It's not what it was the last couple of years. So how that's going to translate on the ice, I don't know, but there's certainly have the talent. When you look at Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point, Victor Hedman, Andre Vasilevsky, even potentially Jake Gensel now, they definitely have the talent to make another deep run, get to a Stanley Cup, or at the very least the Eastern Conference Finals. So, it's definitely possible. It's just, you have a hard time exactly putting a pinpoint on where this team is going to potentially end up. They consistently make the playoffs. They've struggled a little bit the last couple of years. The team looks very different. So, you got to see what they do in the first couple of months here. But listen, I hope they're right. I hope that is a hot take that ends up becoming 100% true, because that's good news for the Lightning.
Let's get more into more hot takes. I feel we've hit a little bit of a ones where we actually agree on some of these, but I'd like to go into more hot takes right here. And the first one is going to come from Tim on Twitter at Tedesco Timothy. Cam Atkinson, who traditionally plays on the right wing on the power play, will take Stamkos's role on the top power play unit, scoring 30 plus goals.
Ooh, oh man, okay. This is a hot take for sure. I don't know if Cam Atkinson takes over Stamkos' spot on the power play. Like, that's a big role for a big, powerful slap shot. And I don't know if Atkinson 100% has that, especially because he's an older guy. I know he's got some power play experience in there as well. But listen, the 30 goals thing, I kind of like, that's the part I like about the most about this, because Cam Atkinson, he's kind of another Connor Sherry type of player, where though there's more risk with Connor Sherry because he had a bigger contract. But he's a guy that played with some top players. He's got good veteran experience and can definitely perform well on the right lines here in the Lightning. Will it work out? I don't know. But if Atkinson can find a good couple of line mates here and really thrive in Tampa Bay, 30 is a long shot, but like 20, I could totally see that happening. I think the biggest part of that hot take, though, is taking over for Stamkos. That probably ends up more as a Gensel, I would imagine, at least to start this season. Maybe Cam Atkinson will come surprise us, and he's got a wicked slap shot.
Yeah, the thing about Cam Atkinson, I really do hope that he scores 30 goals. It might be a little bit tougher. He's not as fast as he was when he was with Columbus and Philly, but he's very much older than he was at that time. But we don't know if he's going to take over that first power play spot. In the first couple of days of practice, we saw that it was Gensel that was the man that took over, but in that spot in particular, it was a combination of Hagel and Kucherov. So we would love if he scored 30 goals. 20 is a little bit more realistic, but again, he's pretty old. I would be surprised if he scored 20 goals, and I think that would help the Lightning exponentially. But we're going to move on to our next hot take, which is from Hockey Season Soon with a sad emoji at Not Terps. Hot take in quotation marks. That's not even a hot take, that this team is better than last year's team.
Yeah, I can understand why he put it technically in quotations because there's a lot of debate amongst Lightning fans. Is this team better than it was last year? On paper, I don't think they are. I think they're missing a top six piece still, and that's going to be the biggest issue for them. But listen, there's no question they have a lot of talent. Got a healthy Andre Vasilevsky this year for the start of the season. You still got Hedman, Kucherov, Braden Point. Those guys are going to be the cornerstones of this franchise, and there's no reason that they can't make the playoffs again and make a potentially deeper run than they did last year. So it's not a crazy take. Again, when you look at it on paper, I think that's where the quote unquote hot take comes from because there's definitely a lot of differences with this team, a lot of changes. We talked about the 5-on-5 play already. That's probably going to be one of the biggest factors. Is this team better? Because that's one of the major things they tried to fix was the 5-on-5 play. If you look at it, all the players who were the worst 5-on-5 for the Lightning are now gone, and they took those players out and replaced them with new guys. So that's the goal that they're trying to fix. If they can do that, yeah, I think this team is better. But I do kind of expect the team to improve as a whole from last year. New defensive system. They have a year of that under their belt. You have new defensive guys. It should get better, but on paper only tells you so much until you can see that into the preseason and the first couple of games of the regular season.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit the nail right on the head there. We won't know until they are ready to go in the preseason. In the regular season, they play a couple games because as much as we love these hot takes, we want to see all these hot takes play out. And especially with this team, we won't know what they look like until they actually play the games. But going forward into our next hot take, Michelle Fenton at Michelle617 underscore. She says, and Jake, you're going to be very happy with this one after last year's hot take. Shiri will return to form and be who we thought he was.
Oh man, I certainly hope so. For those that don't know, we've done these hot takes a couple of times now in our pre. We usually do them in like a preseason preview, but we're doing a full hot take video this year because we had so much fun with them in the past. But my first one was Hagel is going to score 30 goals. He was fantastic. Hagel had a breakout year. He hit that. I was on top of the world. And then I went for Connor Sherry, and yeah, Connor Sherry did not have a good year last year. This would be great. I really hope he does because I still believe the things that I said about Sherry when I predicted he was going to have. I think I said 20 goals, 20 assists, 40-point season because he does have the ability to play with elite playmakers. We saw him do that in Pittsburgh with Washington. He really didn't get much of a chance to do it with the Lightning. He played with Kucherov for a short stint there, and he scored when he was playing with Kucherov. Now, granted, it was Kucherov, and Kucherov could set up anybody. He could set me up there out there on the ice. That's how good he is. But I hope this is true. And listen, Sherry's had a full season now under his belt here to adjust with the Lightning. Some guys are late bloomers, as you would say. They don't just because you come over to a new team doesn't mean you're going to immediately have success. Some guys do. Some guys it takes longer. And the hope is that that's going to be the case for Connor Sherry. I definitely still think he's got the tools to succeed here. Whether he'll do it or not, it remains to be seen. And I think a lot of that does also still depend on where he is going to play for the Lightning and on what line and what teammates he has.
That's a very interesting question. We'll probably get to that when we end up doing our season previews. Like, where is he going to play? I think that all hinges on does he bounce back? Does he, as there's another person that gave us a hot take that said he's going to score 20 goals this season, does he do that? Like, where in the lineup does he slot in? We've been talking this entire time about the top six. There is that opening on the second line. Is Connor Shearer going to take over that role? Is he going to be on the fourth line? Is he going to play every night? That's another question that I think a lot of people have. But ultimately, we will see. We got two more hot takes for you. Again, we want to appreciate everybody who did submit a hot take. We won't get to all of them, but we got to the ones that we think are the best and the most creative. This one, I believe, is the most creative from JW at Wolfman underscore 182. Vasilevsky finally gets an empty net goal.
Man, that would be so much fun. Vasilevsky never really had a good shot at it. And he's not typically a goalie that takes those risks all the time. But oh man, that would be a great moment. Who doesn't love a goalie goal? I hope it happens. That's a good one.
We're seeing a lot more goalie goals just overall because like Pecorino had one, Tuukka Rask had one. Louis Domingue tried a lot when he was with the Lightning to score those empty net goals, and Vasilevsky has tried a couple of times. But man, I hope so. That would be so much fun. That might be a top moment in Lightning history if Vasilevsky is able to finally get that goalie goal.
No question.
And the final one from USF Muscovy at SoFlo Muscovy. We win the division.
That's a good one because this is a very tough division. So it's not going to be easy. That's definitely a hot take. And again, as we kind of talked about before, whether this team is even better than it was last year, uh, that's going to be tough for them to do. And also, with what we've seen over the Lightning in the past couple of years, going all the way back to 2019, where they put the pedal to the metal all the way throughout towards the end of the regular season. And then, of course, we all know what happened in 2019. And ever since then, they have slowed up before the end of the regular season, where even to the point of last year, people were like, myself included, like, this team doesn't look too good here. As we're getting ready to go into the playoffs, they need to turn it on, and they did. They did definitely get better once they're in the postseason, but that's the only reason I don't think this could actually happen is just because the Lightning for the last 3 years have slowed down at the regular season, taken their time, and then got ramped up and ready to go for once the playoffs actually started. I'd love to see the team win the division. That'd be great. It's always nice to do that. You get to have home ice for much longer than if you're, just sneaking into the playoffs. But with how good the division is and the way the Lightning have taken their approach to the end of the regular season the last couple of years, I just can't see it happening.
I hope it does. That would be fantastic for the Lightning. They get a better playoff seed. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of things that they need to figure out. And if a team hits the ground running like the Panthers or the Bruins or the Leafs, if they finally, get it together, uh, the Lightning are probably doomed to win the division. And that's not saying that they're never not going to make the playoffs. It's just they are in a position where there are so many strong teams at the top of their division that if they get off to a slow start because they're figuring things out and then they get better as the season goes on, which is they're accustomed to, they're probably not going to win the division. But overall, guys, that is it for your hot takes. But we would be remiss if we didn't end the video with hot takes of our own. Jake, what is your hot take? You're 1 for 2 so far on your hot takes. What is your hot take of the 2024-25 season?
I was tempted to go with one that's kind of very on brand with me, and that was saying Cam Atkinson is going to score 30 goals. And somebody actually mentioned that in the fan hot takes. But I don't want to do the same thing. I'm going to go something a little different here. I was thinking about it throughout this video. I'm going to go even a little more crazier. I'm actually going to go with a hot take. I think Jake Gensel is going to score 60 goals this year. I think we are going to have another 60 goal scorer in Lightning history. I think he is going to be a dynamic duo with Nikita Kucherov, and he is going to hit 60. That's very tough to do on a very talented Lightning roster. But, if anybody can do it, and Kuch, who always is trying to get better, I think those guys are going to be really working hard, and they're going to be an unstoppable machine. So Jake Gensel for a 60-goal season. That's a tough one, but I want at least a little bit of credit because I was going to take Cam Atkinson at 30, but that's even a tough one too there.
You know what's funny is that when I was going through potential hot takes for the Lightning, I had Gensel hitting 50, and I thought that was a hot take. And this is even hotter. Even that is crazy. But hey, we're in the hot take business. It seems you've hit one. I don't think I've hit one. I don't remember what mine was a couple of years ago. It is not correct last year. Absolutely not. Unfortunately, but that being said, my hot take for this season is that oh boy, it might be a little too hot for even after the 60 goal comment. My hot take for the season is that Mitchell Chafee is going to score 20 goals. Mitchell Chafee played on the third line last year. He only had 3 goals, even though he was a midseason call-up. But I think a uh, improvement on the top, the middle six, with whoever they get there, whether it's a rejuvenated Connor Sheary, whether it's Connor Geeky, whether it's Maxime Groshev cracking the team, which is someone that we've seen skate with the regulars. Those guys are all phenomenal passers. Maybe not Sheary, but the other two specifically, absolutely. I think Mitchell Chafee is going to put himself in a lot of big positions. He's going to take on that Ross Colton role that we saw Ross Colton in the 2021 and 2022 seasons bring himself to, where he just maybe went on this hot streak of goal scoring. One thing about Mitchell Chafee was that he was very, very timely with his goal scoring. He scored a lot of clutch goals out of his 3. I think at least 2 of them were in the third period to get the Lightning back into games, which is something that you love to see. That is my hot take, is that Mitchell Chafee is going to score 20 goals. My other little hot take, I know we've set ourselves to 1. I think this year's Lightning team is going to score more goals than last year's Lightning team. Just by the fact that, yeah, you lost Stamkos, but you gained a lot of experience in Jake Gensel. You should be getting Ryan McDonough, who's good for a couple goals. JJ Moser should be good for a couple goals. Ken Atkinson, Zendy Gergensen, and for the love of God, Connor Sheary getting back on the board and hopefully putting up a 20-goal season.
There's a lot of interesting question marks around this team this year. I think a lot of that depends on how they're going to come right out of the gate early on in the season here. If they stumble, have a little trouble, obviously a lot of that's going to be a lot more difficult. But if they can come out of the gate really strong and look like they have a lot of chemistry of a team that's been together for a couple of years, I don't see any reason that they couldn't do it. No question. I like your Chafee take too as well. You know, listen, he's a talented guy. He scored some big goals for the Lightning last year. No reason he can't jump up there. But you know, being a depth guy lower on the lines when it comes to that, you know, it's a little more difficult to do. I could definitely see him hitting 10 or 15.
Well, that's what we're in the hot take business for. You could see him getting 10. I see him getting 20. Mine is considered a hot take. Yours is, right on par. Hopefully he does score as many goals as possible. But guys, again, we want to thank you so much for engaging with us on Twitter and getting us your hot takes. This has been a fantastic video. We hope all your hot takes, except for the bad ones, come to fruition in this upcoming season. Once again, I have been Michael Wax with Jake Ricker. We have been the Bolt Report. Keep it here for all of your Lightning coverage this upcoming season. Like, share, subscribe. Also follow us at Twitter or on Twitter at Bolt Report _TV. We're also on Instagram, TikTok, here on YouTube. We are all over the place. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll talk to you again in the next one. Go Bolts!